each other an opportunity to, call and respond. And I'm going to also ask that those in the audience please silence your phones um, and govern yourselves accordingly. No emotions, outbursts, that kind of stuff. The chief's vote is one of the most consequential votes that the council has to make. And so this is a very serious hearing. And again, we ask for your full cooperation and making sure that we maintain um, a nice standard in here in the chambers. All right, thank you. Now, Dr. Brackney, if you would like to just simply introduce yourself, I'll give you about 2 minutes. Tell us a little bit about yourself and whatever else, and then we'll go with the questions.
Thank you. If I have permission, could I just do an opening statement, and then that way you'll have the opportunity
Yes.
to question me more thoroughly? Does that work for you,
Go
sir?
ahead, yes.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor, council members, community members, officers here. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you as candidate for the Chief of Police for the City of Jackson. Jackson is a city of history, faith, entrepreneurship, and higher education, and more importantly, a city of possibility. It is also a city with challenges, as crime and the fear of crime touch families, small businesses, faith communities, neighborhoods, and campuses alike. When business owners close early, when congregations worry during worship, or when students question their safety, the whole city feels it. When mothers hold their breath and loved ones pray hedges of protections around their sons, the whole city feels it. And I am no stranger to that feeling. Throughout my career, I have led public safety initiatives that reduce crime, strengthen community trust, and improve officer accountability. I have partnered with clergy and faith-based leaders, business leaders, educators, and residents to create safer, more inclusive communities. I have shown that constitutional policing and effective crime reduction are not in conflict. They reinforce one another. I am mindful that each of you carries the voices and concerns of your constituents, and I am committed to working alongside you to strengthen safety and trust in every neighborhood. I also learned that quality of life issues, disorder, property crimes, blight, they quietly erode our neighborhoods. Addressing them fairly restores stability, reinforces pride, and strengthens connections between residents and law enforcement. And if confirmed, I will bring these proven approaches to Jackson. Together, we can reduce violent crime. We can restore confidence in public spaces and support our neighborhoods so families, students, and business owners can thrive without fear while honoring and never forgetting those already impacted by crime as we collectively work to restore and build trust in public safety. My commitment to you is to turn experience into results, prevent others from becoming victims, and build a department that daily earns the trust of every community it serves. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Foote, we'll start with you, please.
Thank you, Ms. Brackney, for being here, and thank you for your time. We visited a week ago or so. I appreciate the 20, 30 minutes that we had to discuss some of the key issues about the facing and confronting Jackson. And so I'll just follow up on some of those discussions we had. I'll begin with I think is really a big concern that we face in trying to make our city safer, and that is gangs. We've got a lot of gangs. I've heard Chief Wade talk about maybe perhaps more than 20 gangs that are across the city, and I think they're predators on the community, and even just as bad as the fact that they go out to recruit younger youths that may need some direction in their lives and recruit them to their gangs and put them up to doing nefarious things, whether it's carjackings or stealing cars or whatever. So what is what's your plan to address the gangs and basically run them out of town is what I'd like to see happen.
Thank you, sir. There's a couple of things I would first caveat by saying is this. We not only have gangs, you have these informal group affiliations that often are more predatory than the formalized gangs that we would actually put into an intelligence database that would qualify as a gang. But the impact is exactly the same, regardless of whether it's a formal gang or whether it's an informal group or a neighborhood or a street, and how they're loosely connected. The first thing we have to do is gather intelligence on the gangs and then identify and target them very strategically and surgically. That requires partnerships at every level, local, federal, and state. The first way that you do it is oftentimes I do these environmental scans and assessments and identify within each of the different neighborhoods or the different wards the top predators in that community. And if you do it and triage it one at a time, take each group out one at a time, the other ones actually start to fall. When they understand that you have a strategic plan and you're not just responding, you're doing something proactive. And oftentimes we fail in the planning stages of this. We see something occurring and there are so many competing priorities that we let certain things go. Our children cannot be the sacrifice whenever we decide to let something go. And preventive strategies as well. We are talking about new strategies. There have been other gangs across the United States that have faced RICO charges and have been formally charged under a RICO or Racketeering Act, for those of you who don't understand that language. You start bringing in that type of intentionality, you will often see quick and immediate results at that level, and then it continues to have a ripple effect. There's also programs, if you understand, that came out of Boston, Ceasefire. David Kennedy started years ago out of John Jay University. When you start identifying the gangs, but more importantly, calling the gangs in, bringing them in and explaining to them what your strategies are, we have a zero tolerance. You also see that these group affiliations start to fall apart as well. And that's how you target them.
Okay, thank you. One question for each?
No, I'm not going to stop you. Go ahead.
So, follow up on this issue is blight is a big issue in Jackson. We've got lots of blight. We've got record amounts of abandoned property. I think we have 5% of the state's population, but 25% of the abandoned property, residents and commercial. And I think that it's just, those are the scars of the fear and evidence of the fear that's out there in the general law-abiding population. They're fearful. They're fearful of violence, of gang violence, of other violence being perpetrated on them. We've got lots of good office buildings downtown that have been vacated now and stand empty, where in many cases it was the fear of the women that worked in those offices with the law firms or other businesses that were fearful when they left the office at 5 o'clock to go out and get in their car to drive home. They were fearful of what would happen to them between the time they got outside the office to the time they got to their car. And so the companies and law firms moved to outside to Bridgeland or Madison or somewhere else, basically about the fear that these women were encountering just to get to their car at the end of the day. And so I think it's tantamount or it's critical for us as a city government to take that fear and turn it around. I think the gangs should be the ones that are fearful of us. We need to confront them and tell them that their behavior is unacceptable and do our best to run them out of town, get them to leave, because the citizens need to feel safe or we're going to have a successful city. If we're going to rise like the mayor wants Jackson to rise, we have to deal with the fear and make the citizens feel safe and the bad actors be fearful. So how are you going to deal with that fear?
So the first thing we should do is acknowledge that crime stats do not translate to a reduction in fear. Reduction in crime stats do not translate to often reduction in fear. How do I feel about the community that I live in? How do I feel about the places that I work? Do I change my walking patterns as a result of that? Do I feel uncomfortable at night enjoying the amenities that the rest of the world gets to do? Am I excluded from opportunities to engage in my community differently? And so the first thing that you look at is I talk to businesses across, Work with us on making first safety plans so that as we continue to do this, how do we make you safe? How do we engage, talk to you, find about what your fears are? And then you know what else you do? You commit to resources at times with those. We did a lot of things. I started in Pittsburgh or Walk with a Cop. We would have officers in the exact same place at the exact same time, meeting with the community constituents. And they walked with them and they walked through the neighborhoods and said, tell me where your fear is. And then let's work together to make sure that that officer could bring back an answer to that exact same group. And when you're held accountable to that community in which you are serving, it's a very different police response than it is the person who casually patrols around that area. It was highly effective. You often see reductions in crime. The other thing is to get in the front of this. Whenever I meet with the business owners or anyone who's part of a development or central development group or community development plan, I ask to get in right on the very beginning. What is your goals? Where are you trying to go? Who are we trying to woo? And let me be part of that planning process so that we woo them together, that they know right from the beginning that public safety is not an afterthought, but it's part of the initial planning footprint. And when you do that and you can assure people that you hear them and you understand their fears, amazing how the communities respond to you. But more importantly, amazing how the businesses will trust you because you've come out and said, I'm willing to partner with you on the front end before there's a problem and not on the back end once we're having a problem.
Okay, that's all the questions I got for right now.
Okay.
you,
Councilwoman
sir.
Clay?
Welcome to Jackson.
Thank you.
Councilman Stokes?
No questions, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Hartley?
Yes, Dr. Brackney, certainly appreciate you being here today, and know that it was a very rigorous process for you to get to this point. And above all, I feel as though, under our system of government, it is, in fact, the mayor that hires and fires. Our confirmation gives me an opportunity to ask you some questions and kind of see where you feel about some of those things. Your resume is very impressive.
Thank you, sir.
A lot of educational accomplishments. What are some of the educational tools you think is, in your past, is best used in the city of Jackson?
So a combination of things. So desired outcomes. The first thing I do is always look at a logic model. It may sound counterintuitive when you're talking about policing, but using logic models to determine what are the outcomes that we're looking for, and what are those activities and inputs and resources that we need to apply in order to get our desired outcomes. I use a lot of universities to help me. I've often called on Carnegie Mellon and Harvard University to help me analyze data, but also to use things like the data that doesn't get tired, the tools that don't get tired. AI never gets tired. How does it data mine so that we can see different patterns and trends of crime? How do we look at the data that we currently have to help us predict where crime might be? Not necessarily because of the data that is always, some of our data is kind of a little wonky when you look at data, but because of what we've seen over behaviors. How do we get the technology to do that? I'm a huge proponent of cameras. I'm a huge proponent of real-time crime centers or command centers, as it's called here, body-worn cameras. But there's also another part that I'm actually interested in is when you use the technology to allow a public-facing use of your data and the public-facing use of your technology, you find that you can address crime much more effectively because there is always somebody up and in your neighborhoods watching some camera, watching some or doing something with information. And when you use all of the tools that you can use, but don't over-surveil, right? You don't over-police. Use the tools to address the crimes. It is highly effective. I do data dumps, pulling all of your data in to see not only your crimes that are occurring, how often do their officers responding to the same location, and then what can we do to disrupt that when we have heavy consumers of the public safety system. Then you can also potentially go on when you start thinking about data dumps. How often do they respond? How many cars are required when they're there? How quickly are they getting there? How long are they having to stay at that call? And then you can start introducing different kinds of variables to help you solve that problem in advance. And when you find your super consumers of your public safety resources, either the ones who dial 911 or the ones who have 911 dialed on them, you start using that kind of data, you can use that as a resource multiplier where humans are not necessarily available. It's a much more easier, strategic, effective, efficient way.
Thank you. One additional question, probably. Okay, thank you. We have some shortcomings when it comes to finances and budgets. We need more police officers. We need more vehicles or different vehicles at the precinct level. And then on the other side, I have businesses that are complaining, hey, we have this problem, people breaking in, and no response in some instances. How do you plan on maybe doing more with less? Maybe the last answer would probably part of the solution too, and that is do a lot of analysis. But I think we're going to have to look at, for the short term anyway, doing more with less. What are some of your thoughts?
So doing more with less, as many of you knew, I mean, I've grown up a Black woman in a poor city all my life on public assistance. One of the first generations of my family to be educated. I have a father with a 6th grade education and a mother with a GED. We did nothing but do more with less. There was no money. So creativity had to be the only way that you could address any of the issues that you had in your household or in your family. 1, you use technology. 2, you use collaboration. 3, I also do something called asset mapping. What are the assets that currently exist in every single community that can support the work that we need to do? And then we use government at that point to fill in the gaps. It should not be the default. It should be the support mechanism. And once you do an environmental scan of what you have in place, you will find that there are lots of nonprofits, non-governmental organizations, and actually for-profit organizations as well as universities who can do the work and help do it for you. We just not have asked or asked with intentionality.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have, sir.
All right, Councilwoman Brown Thomas.
Thank you for wanting to serve in our city.
Thank you.
My first question is, if you are confirmed, how would you support and how would you build trust between the police department and the community?
Thank you so much. We often talk about trust and legitimacy hand in hand. And the reason that most of the organizations or the communities don't trust us, residents don't trust us, is because there's often a lack of transparency, a lack of accountability. They don't often feel like their voices are heard or that they're elevated to the level in which they deserve to be elevated. Most people want to be acknowledged. They also want to have an encounter that they're left with feeling dignity and feeling that whatever crisis they're experiencing at that moment, someone is authentically interested in doing that. One of the first ways that you do it is to be in community. I often talk about relational policing instead of community policing. Relational policing actually builds community policing. And I often go into the neighborhoods and talk to them to say to us, what's missing? What is it that we haven't heard? What haven't we asked you? Why haven't we not addressed these issues? How often have you been putting that in? And when you start solving the small problems, I've heard things, and what may be small when I say that in terms of like data capturing, when a person says over and over that there's loud music in this house next to me, and I've called you 100 times, and nothing has happened. They're running the stop sign here every time, and our children are at risk. They're drag racing up and down the street, and nothing is being done. When you address those kinds of disorders, and you do that, and you say, I see you at those levels, then they start to feel confident that the higher level crimes, violent crimes, will be taken care of. You know, my grandmother used to say, take care of the little things, pay attention to how someone's hands look and how their feet look. If they take care of those little things, the big things are taken care of too.
Thank you. My next question, what are your top 3 priorities of our police department in your first year?
So the top 3 priorities is this. I know that this is a department that has great possibility. They do. I've talked to now my 3rd precinct, and I keep hearing the same thing over and over again. They just want opportunities. They want opportunities to professionalism, to promote up into the organization. But they can't do that without technology, equipment, and training training not just at a local level, but training at a national level. Here in the audience today, literally are some of the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives, in which I am currently the national chair for. Bring in that kind of training that is the type of training that holds the standard, not just locally, not just nationally, but globally. And our officers deserve that kind of training, that kind of equipment, and that kind of personal and professional development. Training is one. Technology. We are woefully behind in the technology era. We know that today data repeats itself globally every 12 hours. So every data piece or data point that we know is repeating itself every 12 hours. When it's going that fast, our officers need the tools to be able to keep up with the data that is out there. That is another one. And then just again, looking at the organization, is it set up in a way that best serves this community? Are we delivering the services that are expected at the level of excellence that this community not only expects but deserves?
Thank you. And my last question, I promise. After serving 25 years on this department, I was among some of the officers that feel like the promotion level was unfair. And it's a lot of officers that feel like promotion is unfair. What is your plan to make the officer feel like if a promotion opportunity came back again, that you would treat them right and do fair?
And if you don't mind, Madam Councilwoman, if I can just rephrase that, not only is promotional unfair, your morale issue is often tied to those intangibles. Your morale issues are not often, people think it's money, people think it's their equipment, they think it's their vehicle. You know what it's tied to? How you're treated. Are you promoted fairly? Are your assignments fair? Are your opportunities fair? Or is it just somebody that you know or somebody else? Do you have access? One of the first things that you do is you set up systems, and then you test those systems. You stress those systems. And more importantly, you let everyone see it. You currently have civil service. We should be using what is currently in place to ensure. Also, when there's promotions, I never have the assessments from inside. I have sat on hundreds of promotional and assessments, and I bring someone from the outside every single time. You know why? I can then look at your portfolio. They can look at your portfolio. They don't have to know that you know somebody and that you're related to somebody. All they see is the criteria, the skills, the knowledge, the abilities, and the qualifications in front of them. And do you meet those? And if you meet those, you should have a fair shot, just like everybody else.
Thank you.
Councilman Parkinson.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for sharing that, and thank you, Dr. Brackney, for being here. I'll begin by asking the two questions I ask everybody who is confirmed by our council. And the first is, what are your goals for the department? You answered Councilwoman Brown Thomas's your priorities, but I'm curious, what are your goals?
So the first one is going to be an intangible. My goal for the department is that they see themselves as able, as competent, as professional, as happy, as thriving in the environment that they are. And the only way that gets there is if we all do this together. When you look at an organization, they will never treat the community any better than they're treated themselves. So within the organization, if we don't treat them well, if we don't have healthy, thriving officers, we don't have healthy, thriving professional staff, it is very hard to translate that into healthy, thriving relationships out in the community. So what does officer safety and, more importantly, wellness look like? Holistic wellness, not just having access to gyms, but what does that look like when I have access to mental health care? What does it look like when I have help with, I may be a caregiver for young children, but also on the other side, we often have a lot of individuals that are taking care of both sides, whether it's their more elderly relatives that they're caring for, or whether they're caring for young children at the exact same time. And that's a lot of stress on a department. It's a lot of stress. And we are an aging society, and understanding that, how do we set up spaces where our officers can be well? I also heard that there was not a lot of opportunity for professional development. That may not necessarily be promotional development. But when you are intellectually fed, when you're physically fed, and when you're emotionally fed and spiritually fed, those are the officers that you want showing up at work every single day. So looking at our personnel and seeing where we are failing them, that is one of the first things. The other goal is to get a really firm footprint on, I'm sure you'll like to hear this, budget? What does our equipment look like? Is our budget aligned with our equipment? Are our needs being met? So a full assessment and inventory of the physical tools that we have, so that when I do come asking for a budget, there's a reason for it. I can give you the impact of why we need these things and the impact of what happens if we do not.
Great, thank you. Another question we like to ask all the confirmation and the confirmation hearings is, if confirmed, how will you work with council?
Maybe I should have watched the other confirmation hearings, huh? If I'd have known that was your questions. So let me understand how this would work for me. As I said in my opening statement, each of you carries the weight and the concerns of your community and your constituents. There should be regular communication about the things that are going on in your communities, and more importantly, how we can help you address them. If you're bringing those to us, someone has brought them to you. It is very difficult, and people often are very vulnerable when they have to contact their council persons or when they have to contact the police. We should not make that process more difficult for them. So if it's brought to you, you should be able to bring it to us. And there's ways that we can do that. We can set up just literally our own sort of pathways to getting information to it. You should not be at a barrier to be able to get resources for your constituents and your communities.
Thank you. I think one thing that's really important for the chief of police is someone who's going to enforce the law. And we'd like to work with you. If there are certain ordinances that you would like to see on our books, this council is more than happy to consider those. If there are certain ordinances on the books that you believe the city can benefit from a repeal, we're happy to consider those as well. But for the ordinances that are on our books, we spend a lot of time passing really key pieces of ordinances, and it's very frustrating sometimes when we see those ordinances not be enforced. And so I think we'll need a very clear commitment that you will enforce the ordinances and enforce the law, if confirmed.
Thank you for that. And as on our conversation is, if we have laws on the book, oftentimes we will put some on the book and then we don't give the officers the resources to be able to implement them. I know we talked about noise ordinances, and then that there are often lanes that are shut down and grills come out in the middle of the street and things of that nature. If we have a noise ordinance, but our officers do not have decibel meters, fix it, right? Fix the problem. That's an easy fix. So I think part of the frustration becomes on every part is, you want the ordinances enforced, the community wants them enforced, and then the officers don't have the ability to enforce it, and then there's frustration. So I think what the solution always is for me is, when we talk about ordinances, if we do it together from the beginning, we can then make sure that the ordinance is able to be enforceable. You'll often see things about a curfew center or a truancy center that says take them somewhere, and then you don't have somewhere to take them. So you have a truancy center or a truancy order on the books or a curfew order on the books that cannot legally be enforced because there's no actual way to do that. So I would ask that when we do these things, that we work together, make sure that we have the resources to not only operationalize it, but implement it in a meaningful way.
Great. Yep, we look forward to working with you on that. Something that I think is really important in Ward 7 is the ability to collaborate with other agencies. We have a huge footprint, not the entirety of Ward 7, but a huge part of Ward 7 is in the Capitol Police precinct, as well as 100% of all of our wards is in Hinds County. And so having strong working relationships with Capitol Police, with Hinds County, and with other agencies is going to be crucial. We have had some turf battles in the past with blame on all sides, and we've had moments where true collaboration has been possible. And one of the things that we're looking for, as I look to confirm, is someone who can collaborate effectively with other agencies. And I'd love to hear your reflections on that.
So I think you've been on my calendar today, it seems. My first meeting was with Chief Bulecki this morning, and we talked about exactly those things. What does a clear understanding of collaboration look like? How do we prioritize the things that we are going to be working on. How do we deconflict in a healthy way where that needs to be deconflicted? But also, more importantly, how do we now strengthen the relationship around communication and goals? We all have the same goals: Hinds County, the Capitol Police, and Jackson PD, to make this area, to make this community safer, thriving, not only just from crime and disorder, but the fear of crime and disorder, which is just as true and tangible as the actual data and the numbers. And so we had that conversation. Then we met with Cities United today about how do we bring together resources to address our youth and the fact that they are often feeling disconnected from the systems. I say all the time, if they don't have access to mainstream economies, they will make their own economies. And that's where we have the ability to disrupt some of the violence that are going on, where people are just attempting to either make money, or territories or things of that nature. We can't do this by ourselves. We don't have the resources. We don't have the budget. We just don't have the personnel to do that. And we know we cannot police ourselves out of this. So collaboration doesn't just stop and start with the public safety agencies. It's bringing in those other persons who can wrap around us so that we can address the problem holistically.
Thank you. Dr. Brackney, at Jackson, as in many cities, the work of animal control falls under the police department. And so I'm wondering if you can speak to your preparedness to work with animal control.
I don't own any pets, for the record. Animal control, I do these surveys in communities, and I often tell a community to go outside at 10 a.m. and we have this conversation and tell me what you see. And when you tell me what you see, if it's things like dogs are running loose, or if you see that there's a home that is, that there's blight in the community, or if you go outside and you see certain things, and more importantly, how does it make you feel when you see that thing at 10 a.m.? And then I do the same thing at 10 p.m. Animal control is an important aspect of that because it's one of those things, it has a response feel of emotion more than it necessarily does a legal response. People respond emotionally. They're afraid of dogs. They're afraid of our animals, but they're also concerned when there's animals who are being abused and mistreated in the community. Yes, it falls under there, but there's actually ways that you can do it. You can create a healthy animal space to live in. I am more than willing to bring in some experts from Pittsburgh who did this. And one of the highest running fundraisers every day on that day of Tuesday, that day of giving, is to our animal shelters so that they can support those animals who are either abandoned and allow for adoption versus euthanasia of those kind of animals. I think it's a great project. And let's not forget that we have veterinarians who are going through schools here. Let's use them to help us with best practices of how we can find places and create spaces for healthy, thriving animals, and then use them in different ways. There are a lot of animals who are support animals, emotionally support animals. Use those kind of animals to reintroduce them back into society, and it could be something that is not only profitable, but also something that's healthy.
Thank you. Dr. Brackney, I'll close with this. Yesterday was the one-year anniversary of the tragic passing of Deputy Martin L. Shields, Jr. He had been an officer with numerous agencies, including at one point JPD. Yesterday, on that anniversary, we held an honorary street renaming for this individual and his family. You graciously attended that, and I appreciate you being there. That event was a stark reminder that the officers who will report to you put their lives on their line. That is the job they signed up for, and that was the job that they trained for. They deserve a strong leader who will support them in their mission. After our meeting and after this confirmation, I believe you are that leader. You will happily have my support. I thank you for what you do and what you will do in Jackson, and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Parkinson. Mrs. Clay has a question. Or
Okay,
some.
you brought up the subject of budget. Have you looked at the budget for the Jackson Police Department?
Yes, I have.
Okay, do you see any shortages in the budget or anything that you would change?
So I'm looking at your budget, and currently, right now, you're between $800,000 and close to $1 million in overtime, which means that there is something going on where officers are being tasked in order to meet the needs of this community. So what that tells me, not only is there a budget issue, what is that strain doing to our officers, and then what are we doing to support that? And there are other ways that we may need to look at those services. So I've looked at that. We have 239 officers. We're budgeted for 275. We also are under budgeted for our professional staff. And that's normally how I refer to our civilians or non-sworn. They are not civilians. They are not non-sworn. They are not opposite of us. They are professional staff who help support these agencies and get the work done here at Jackson, in Jackson. So that's one of the areas. When we're facing that kind of an overage, the first thing I need to look at is why, how is it occurring, and is it actually taxing? And what do we do to not only reduce that, but if we need to put that somewhere else, or those monies where there is a gap, how might we do that? Now, I have not had complete full access for the last 5 years. I am not an employee, but I've gone what they've given to me publicly. But looking at the budget, your overtime is one of the areas that is concerning to me.
Okay, what about salaries?
I don't have access to individual salaries. I'm not an employee here, so I would not have access to their personal information. We know that starting salaries can come in low here, but your starting salaries, you have to do oftentimes a salary scan to see what the salaries are in the area around you, and then you also have to do that against nationally. So when you have areas that are expensive to live in, where you have to live outside, where there's housing shortages, where officer salaries cannot meet the need to live in the communities, there's then the need to look at salaries if you want officers to live in the same communities in which they will then police.
Okay, next question. You're going to live in the city of Jackson, right?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Are you going to live in the city of Jackson?
Yes, I plan on living in the city of Jackson, and I've been touring apartments right here in Jackson.
Okay, and next question. In terms of salary caps, are you aware of any caps on salaries with the police department?
I'm not aware of your caps on salaries, but those are normally set through civil service processes, so I would have to dig a little bit deeper into those. Again, there's not a lot of information as a person who is not employed by the city that I would have access to.
Okay, and if your salary is above the cap, are you willing to take the position until the salary is raised?
My salary has been posted, and that salary is the salary that I understand that is being offered.
Okay.
All right. Dr. Bragney, I enjoyed visiting with you. Was that
sir.
last week?
That was last week, sir.
Time flies. Now, one educator to another, I have 35 questions.
Did you have 35?
I do. I'm not going to ask them all, but they're going to come from everywhere. And there may seem to be some redundancy, but I want to ask my question in a different way.
Yes, sir.
To get you on the record. If you don't mind, I'm going to start with your leadership experience in Charlottesville.
Yes, sir.
Okay? All right, so you were hired in Charlottesville to rebuild trust after the Unite the Right rally and to reform police culture. What specific reforms did you implement there, and what measurable results did those reforms produce?
Thank you. So the first thing that I was done when I was hired to come into Charlottesville, you were right, it was after the Unite the Right rally. And one of the complaints is that our officers were in alignment with the Ku Klux Klan and the neo-Nazis who had marched through the streets, and that they had stood there and allowed for the tragedies that had occurred there. And so the first thing that I did was, what was the culture there? I walked through the door, and I was the only Black female in the agency, and I was the chief of police there. And so just to level set for you what the culture looked like and why I was called in to reform it. My first day, I'm walking down the hall. I am the chief of police, so I realize I am the highest ranking person in there. And a white male walks up to me and says, I want to let you know, I vote Republican, and I don't drink any and it was more lattes, pumpkin lattes. And my response immediately was, as the assumption was, because I believe in different things like social justice and fair and equitable policing, and that everyone belongs and is welcomed in our communities, that somehow that constitutional policing would be at odds with the work that I would do. And so culturally, the first thing I did is said, I need to open up everything that I can about our department to the community. One of the initiatives I started was, and it is the only one to this day in the United States, it's a Fourth Amendment analyst position, in which I had an independent person pull every field stop of our officers, and particularly those that were officer initiated, and had them triangulate the body-worn cameras with their written reports, with the things that they had put over CAD. And then I realized that they were disproportionately stopping certain people in certain communities without any probable cause. I then posted all of those data on our website. Who were stopping the officers, or where people were being stopped, the race and gender of them, the reason for their stop, and more importantly, the legal outcome. If they were just being let go after they were stopped, why were we stopping them at that kind of rate? I then did the exact same thing with our use of force. Every use of force incident, a summary was put on the website about that use of force, the race and gender of the officer, and the highest level of force, and whether it was justified or not. And we kept that information confidential and just used a number that was generated for us sequentially. That then allowed the community to see the levels of force we were deploying on our officers. I did the same thing with internal affairs. Every single complaint that came in, a summary of that complaint was put on our website. The race and gender of the officer, the race and gender of the person who was stopped, the type of complaint, the violations of the policies, the outcome of that investigation, and more importantly, what was my response, whether there was training, whether there was counseling, whether the person was terminated. Again, you can do this because it's only an identifier and not the individual officer's name, so you don't release any personnel. Those type of initiatives were extremely successful in creating legitimacy in our agency, because the community understood when they brought something to our attention, we took it seriously, and then they could then vet whether or not we had did the job correctly, fully, thoroughly, and transparently. That still does not exist anywhere else in the nation, and since my departure from Charlottesville, they have rolled back every one of those initiatives.
Okay, thank you. So you disciplined officers for misconduct, right?
That is correct.
How do you ensure accountability while maintaining cohesion in the department?
So when you get to the point where you have to discipline any officer, you have failed. Something has failed along the way. By the time, not only did I discipline officers, I fired 10 officers from Charlottesville Police Department. Fired 10 of them. Excessive force, domestic violence, sexual violence, theft, racial, racist and homophobic and xenophobic behaviors. They were circulating nude photos of women they had been having sex with on our city phones. They had threatened to kill 2 other officers. They threatened to kill me and said they wanted God to sort it out when they got done with me. How do you do that? You come into work every day. You look at those cases, you evaluate them, you work with your district attorney's office, and then you terminate them, and you make the standard clear. Corruption at any level will not exist in this organization, and I am willing to put my life on the line if that's the case. And I walk back through those doors every day during those investigations, albeit gun in hand, but nonetheless, I walk back through those doors.
All right. So how would you describe your leadership style today, and how has it evolved since your experience in Charlottesville?
So thank you. So my leadership has been evolving. It's not just then. My first leadership position was in 1995. I like to say I was 2 years old at that time, but it was 1995. And I'm a very different leader then. I think we all are. Every one of us sitting in these spaces are very different leaders than the day we first went into a formal position. I have learned patience. I've learned grace. I have learned equifinality. My way is not always the right way. We might all have different ways to go about getting to the work, but we'll all eventually get there. That has changed and evolved. As a young supervisor, I just thought because I knew and understood the books, I knew and understood how it should be done. That's not it. You have got to give people the opportunity to fail and do so safely. And that's one of the things that has changed in me. One of the other things that has changed in me is intentional development, not just promotional development. Hiring of life coaches and career coaches is one of the best things I've ever done in my life. Someone that helps me see myself differently, allows me to see how the world might see me, and then how are those two things congruent? And when they're incongruent, how do you then correct that?
Okay, thank you. Now I want to kind of move to climate, culture, and trust. I am a recovering civil service commissioner.
I'm recovering Catholic.
And I remember, even though it's a quasi-judiciary, I remember a lot of those cases. And so, JPD has a history of morale challenges and a lot of turnover. As you can tell, we're budgeted at 275, we're at 239, we lost some recently. What is your plan to stabilize and the morale and restore pride in JPD?
So thank you for that. Most people leave due to a lack of opportunities. They're not shown a pathway that they might be able to do something differently. They think that the only thing that they have available to them, and believe me, it's the backbone, I've walked lots of beats in my day, is patrol. But what happens if you allow officers to dream big about what they could be, who they could be, and how they could help? And so one of the ways that you do that is design career paths forward, design authentic mentorship forward. Everyone should be able to walk in and understand from day one, if I want to be a detective, if I want to be on the SWAT team, if I want to ride a motorcycle, if I want to be part of mounted patrol, if I want to be investigations or the crime unit, we should help get them clear pathways there and then provide them with the opportunities to do that. One of the things that we found out today is, when I was talking, is we often offer tuition reimbursement, but that is often written out of the budget. When we offer something and then take it away, that can be a problem. But also, reimbursement is often cost prohibitive for a lot of people. If we reimburse them, is there ways to do things like take the burden off of them and direct bill, the university direct bill the city? If the city's going to pay it back to the officer, take out the middle person. And that actually does things like increase morale. More people will go back to school. People will see pathways forward. Another thing that I like to pilot is put in a memo. Tell me what you would like to do. Have you ever been offered a 60-day rotation in investigations or in the crime unit or in the evidence room or doing something else? Tell me what you would like to do, and let's see how we can make that happen. Exposure is the best medicine for getting people to stay engaged, and then more importantly, that's where they see possibility.
Thank you, and I appreciate that answer. We've had quite a few officers to graduate with their degrees because of a scholarship I brought here to Jackson from Strayer University. And so I think having some type of agreement with our local institutions would definitely help to develop those officers. Because I remember back in the day, you used to have some, you were once required to have some college, but they don't require that anymore. And so I think it's important, with respect to having professional officers. Another question here. How will you assess the climate and culture of JPD in your first 90 days? Again, I'm a recovering civil service commissioner. Do you plan on going through the IED files? I think it's important that you know who was in your department.
This is a twofold response, right? When you think about it, there's the logistical things that you have to do, and then there's the emotional things that you have to do to assess your department. Logistically, when I arrived in Charlottesville, and I will use this as an authentic example, Internal Affairs had not closed a single case in 3 years. Not one case in 3 years. And I put together a team to do just that. We should go through, we put together a team that went through every single case, not only the ones that had not been addressed, but I even had them do an audit, pull the ones that had been closed, and see if that investigator got the same results as the other one. So we did an authentication of those reports as well. That was highly effective. But you know what the community said? They used to say that when something was sent to Charlottesville PD, to IAA, it went into a black hole, and it was never seen again. And they weren't wrong. They were not wrong. Thus, that's the reason I started posting them on the website, that the community could hold us accountable into those standards. How do you assess the organization individually? The first thing I do is an organizational assessment. As you know, my doctorate is in instructional management and leadership. A lot of that is around organization. Every organization that I look at, I take the personalities out of it. I then look at what does our chart look like, and then I say, what are the skills, knowledge, and abilities and job description that was put in for that space? And then I ask the officers to do a personal SWOT analysis of themselves and of the department, and then I actually tell them to do Strength Finders 2.0. And then I start overlaying, are the people in the right positions to do the right jobs? Or have we just put people in place because of who they're related to, who they're friends with, who they may know, who they have spent some time with, right? And there are a lot of formal and informal relationships within the JPD. One of the ways you address culture is to start digging at what are those things that are cancerous to your culture. And that is often a formal organizational assessment. And I've done lots of organizational assessments in my consulting career about what hurts and harms organizations. So we would be doing something very similar here.
Okay. Colleagues, any more questions? Y'all have any more? All right.
What number are you on?
I don't know. Well, I'm striking out some things that you have answered. So, what specific steps will you take to eliminate favoritism, cliques, and internal politics within the department? And that's coming from a historic perspective. My father was a longtime police officer. My brother's who's retiring, and I have the ear and personal relationships with a lot of those who serve, you know, and I've always appreciated them, especially precinct 1, 2, and 3, because they serve my ward. No shade to 4. But how will you, what steps will you take to eliminate favoritism, cliques, and internal politics within the department?
So thank you. So there's certain things that we're never ever going to be eliminate. Cliques are going to form regardless. You know, I can have anything in place. My job, my responsibility, as well as those who are in command, our responsibility is that we identify people based on knowledge, skills, and abilities, and what are our key performance indicators that tell us that we are meeting the demands of that particular position. If you have civil service requirements, you follow them. If you have opportunities, you post it for everyone to see. Give everyone equal opportunities to do that. When I talked about promotional, I said I bring in outside assessors, and I don't mean from Mississippi. And the reason you don't always want it from someone in the state, because these states condense very quickly. When I was in Pennsylvania, everybody in Pennsylvania knew everybody else because you go to training together. In Virginia, everybody knows everybody else. Mississippi, I can guarantee you, everyone's going to know everybody else. So bring them in from Kansas, California. The standard for promotions, you give them the training, you identify that, you put all of the information out at the same time, and then everybody gets the fair opportunity to compete. That's the first one. Assignments. Those kinds of things are often, somebody gets the better assignment, someone's on night shift for their entirety of life because someone does not like them. It's as simple as that. Someone gets the car that I said earlier that barely makes it to the call without it coughing in the doors, and you're just praying, you know, wrapping it around with Jesus to get you there. There's something that you need to do. How are your cars distributed? Do an inventory, do an assessment, and see if we're meeting the needs. But the first thing you have to do is set up professional standards. CALIA standards, the accreditation standards. We do have accreditation standards here for the state. The one thing I'm going to shout out, my father-in-law, Dr. Donald Wheelock, was the accreditation manager for Jackson State University. So when it comes to what the standards look like and how do we meet them, I'm going to rely heavily on those people whose professional business is to do that work.
Okay, thank you. You knocked out another question. Will you commit to reviewing recent promotions and assignments to ensure fairness and transparency?
Yes, that's an easy one for me.
Easy one, thank you. Let's see, let's move to your leadership team and assistant chief. Do you intend to bring in your own assistant chief of command staff out from outside of Jackson? If so, how will you balance bringing in trusted leadership while also developing internal talent?
So I've made no commitments to bring anyone in from outside yet. I have made a commitment to look at our organization, to see what staff we need to bring in, what staff that needs to be developed, what type of team we need to build here. It would be very difficult for me to make those assessments when I have not been in the organization.
Okay, and let's see here. Almost done, colleagues. We got a meeting at 6, so we got to finish. So we know that JPD has struggled with staffing shortages. How will you manage overtime costs? And I know Councilwoman Clay has asked you about this in an roundabout kind of way, but how will you manage overtime costs? Because we're between 800,000 and 1 million while ensuring adequate police coverage.
Again, I would have to be able to look at how our resources are being deployed. Are they being deployed adequately, or are there some gaps that we're having? Are there ability to, whether we like it or not, move people into different areas? If there are some shifts that are overstaffed on a certain shift and then there are other ones that are short, we may have to look at that footprint to respond to the need and not necessarily how someone feels about what staffing looks like. Oftentimes, staffing is done at a hunch level and not at a level based on the information and data. And as we've collated that data, are we doing the proper response to and deploying our resources effectively and efficiently? So looking at where our resources are deployed, how they're deployed, that will also impact what your overtime looks like as well.
Okay, thank you. If the council told you today that your budget would be reduced by 5%, what specific changes would you make?
Well, not having complete access, but here's what I would say to you.
Pretend.
Here's what I would say to you is, wherever those depreciations or whatever you would have me reduce it, I would present it to you this way. If you want a 5% reduction and I take 1%, say, out of our training and development, here's the impact that that's going to have, positively and negatively. If I take 5%, the officers will no longer be trained at a level that is sufficient. They will no longer operate at that. And then I'll present it to you, and then council can make the informed decision of how they want to allocate budget. If the council says that it has to come 5% and I take it out of vehicles, then I'll say with that, we have slower response rates. Officers will not be able to return to their calls. Council will have to make an informed decision about how they want to allocate budget. I will present the options, both the positive impact if we can maintain it and also the negative impact. So I don't just reduce budgets, I say how it impacts the reduction. And then council is the one who will approve that. I will present it and then give you an informed option so that you can make the best informed decision that you can.
All right, thank you. And I am done. All right.
Thank you.
Colleagues, any more questions? Councilman Stokes, anything?
No, sir.
All right. Well, the item's on the floor. Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a few comments.
Sure.
As has been said, the selection of a police chief for this city is of great importance, and it, I think, will determine whether our city sinks or swims. We have had a very thorough, a very thoughtful, and exhaustive search process using one of the top search firms in the country, headed up by members of this community in the search committee process. And I am proud to say that Dr. Rachelle Brackney was the best person that we could find, and that she is the right candidate to put up for confirmation to be the next police chief of the city of Jackson at a salary of $150,000. Dr. Brackney's experience, nearly 40 years in law enforcement, 31 years in the Pittsburgh Police Department, first starting as a beat cop, and then in the final 15 years of her tenure there, she served as commander of operations and major crimes for the Pittsburgh Police Department. She served as police chief for George Washington University, a very large university with a lot of complications of urban life. She was then tapped to be police chief in Charlottesville at a very pivotal time in the history of Charlottesville, Virginia, and she served admirably as police chief there. She has strong experience and has a doctorate degree in law enforcement and criminology. I don't know that we can find a more qualified person than Dr. Brackney to take this position at this time. She has been highly sought after for many years, as a national speaker on community policing, criminology, law enforcement. She knows how to find resources. She has an impeccable reputation in going after resources. She spent an inordinate amount of her time ensuring fairness in the community, fairness to the people that are served by the police department, and fairness to police officers themselves. She has a temperament that I think we need in the city of Jackson. That's a no-nonsense temperament that is also tinctured by compassion. Compassion for the people who work under her, compassion for the people that she serves as police chief in the city. You know, so we thought long and hard about who out of the 32 people who applied to be the new police chief, and we arrived by consensus of the search committee that Dr. Brackney was the person that we wanted to put forth. And I will also say this about, maybe some members have concerns about salary. This city has experience and precedent of offering $150,000 for department heads in the past. We had a public works director under Mayor Yarber who was paid $150,000 as public works director. We had a public works director under Mayor Lumumba who was paid $150,000 as the public works director. 4 of the council members who are sitting here today on the council were members of the council when the salary of the public works director under Mayor Lumumba was awarded the $150,000 salary. $150,000 is not inconsistent it's consistent with or below the national market. Now, we wanted to get someone, and at $130,000, which is what this salary is topped at right now, we knew we wouldn't get someone that we would find probably as credible to take this job as offering someone $150,000. It's 11% $3,000 that the pay scale is now. $150,000 is slightly less than what trial judges here in Mississippi make. Circuit judges, chancery judges, county judges. Appeal court judges are making $175,000 a year in Mississippi. Now, this city has to establish a pay that's at or near market salaries if it expects to attract and retain top talent. And I submit to you that Dr. Rachel Brackney is top talent. And on top of that, I believe that Dr. Brackney will more than offset this salary that we're proposing with the resources that she will be able to bring in to this police department and into the city. The Hinds County Sheriff makes right at $150,000. Cities with similar populations as Jackson are in the same
Mayor.
the same range.
Mayor.
I will be brief, sir.
Okay.
But you asked 34 questions.
But this is a council meeting.
I understand.
This is a council meeting, and the administration is a guest.
Fargo, North
But let me
Dakota.
just say this, Mayor, and I know you're going to finish. Council members are ready to proceed, but you did bring up a point that we may need to go into executive session or something to discuss, because we're confirming or going to vote to confirm based on the current salary as we budgeted. Now, unless you're going to pull the other 20-something out of your budget, we may be able to do that. But there is some uncomfortability here. I hope I didn't just make up a word, but we're ready to proceed.
We're not against 150,000. Let it be clear, okay? What we are against is that the cap on the position is a different salary. And therefore, we must take charge and do right, since we talk transparency at this council all day long, okay? Nobody on this council is against 150,000. We realize that is a good salary, but we also realize we must follow protocol and do rules.
Yes,
And if I may continue, Mr. President,
Well, we would like, because of process, because of our procedure, we need to make sure we have legally everything streamlined here. Attorney Martin, can you comment on what we will be looking for in the future for that adjustment? Maybe at the next council meeting, we actually put that in writing and make it legal.
Sure. So the confirmation order as drafted does not, excuse me, Drew Martin, City Attorney. The confirmation order as drafted does not address salary. So if the council votes on the confirmation as it's drafted, it will not impact any salary. And the most that can be paid currently is what the city currently allows as the cap on that position. The council can vote to increase that cap, and they could do that by amendment today, or it can be brought before you at a future meeting.
I'm not sure if I'm speaking for all my colleagues, but I would like for the administration to go ahead and make that happen, so at our next meeting, we could be presented with something we can vote on.
And we need to know what budget is coming from.
Well, ultimately, that's the city council's decision.
Say less. Okay? All right, Mayor, you may proceed.
cities with similar populations, Fargo, North Dakota, $149,000. Ann Arbor, Michigan, $181,000. Little Rock, $166,000. Chattanooga, $175,000. Jackson, Tennessee, with half our population, $147,000. Dr. Rachel Brackney does her homework. She has vision. She has broad experience across the depth and breadth of policing. She knows how to successfully seek resources. She leans heavily towards fairness. Fairness to the officers who will serve under her. Fairness to the people of Jackson whom she will be serving. But at the end of the day, she is as tough as nails. And I believe her leadership is exactly what the city of Jackson and its citizens need right now. And so I unequivocally put forth Dr. Brackney for nomination and confirmation by this council.
All right,
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Any more questions or comments, colleagues? Okay. Hearing none, all in favor? Councilman Stokes?
Yes.
All right. Opposed?
Yes.
6-1. All right, thank you. Dr. Brackney, Chief, who did you bring with you today?
Thank you so much. First, I want to thank my online family. My husband, my support is online. Our daughter and her new husband, my son-in-law, are online, family and friends. But here with me are literally Angie Cotton, one of my dear friends, lives right here in Ridgeland. Mama G, Jonathan Gilbert is right here as well. My second mom when I am here, when my mother-in-law is not available. Dr. Mary McNoggin, who is also close friend and daughter of Mama G. And then Angie Gilbert, all here. Andrea, originally from Natchez, and is here and has been working with Trustmark forever. That is my family. To the officers that are in the room, to the support that has been shown to me, thank you so very much. I couldn't be beyond more excited, humble, and proud. Thank you for your confidence.
So you're on the clock now?
Y'all gonna go vote about myself? No. Yes, I've been on the clock for a while.
When do you look to take your seat?
When do I look to take? So the way that we're looking it out, currently I must give my organization 30 days notice. It's a university, and I would not give them 30 days notice until after today. So I can give them that now at 6:48 or 5:48 p.m. That I am available. So we're looking April 1st when they would be allowing me out of the contract.
Does her salary start today?
Mm-mm.
No.
No, your salary starts until it starts when you start.
All right. Okay. All right. Well, is there anything else coming before this body? Colleagues, we have a meeting in 13 minutes. We're adjourned.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
What's going on? Good? All right, all right. You say you want us here? Okay. The mayor's gonna talk and she gonna talk to you.
So we're gonna let the mayor talk. When do you want to talk? Before or after her? Whatever the hell you want to say.
It ain't gonna be much. It's her show, man.
I think I'm gonna have her speak last.
Okay, yeah, let's do that. I'll be very brief. Good evening, everyone. First of all, I'd like to congratulate you again on your confirmation today. I look forward to continuing to work with Mayor Horn, Chief Brackney, during this transition phase. Not only that, Chief Brackney expressed her willing and the importance of having a partnership with law enforcement agencies here in Hinds County. So upon my departure from the Jackson Police Department, I still have a role as a stakeholder here in public safety here in Hinds County. So as a Hinds County Sheriff, I still look forward to continuing to work with her, her leadership team, Capitol Police, and all law enforcement agencies here in Hinds County and the state of Mississippi to continue to make Jackson a safe place. So again, congratulations, and to you, the mayor, I am forever grateful for this opportunity to be in this role that I am today. Thank you.
All right, we'll have brief remarks by a couple of members of the search committee. Ms. Beverly Harris Williams, and she'll be followed by Dr. Ken Wilson.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for voluntarily telling me this. I appreciate it. We want to thank, as a former law enforcement officer, former JPD officer, former FBI agent, we want to welcome you to the city of Jackson. We extend our deepest joy having you here, and we look forward to working with you in any way that we can. The search committee, we had a tough job. We enjoyed doing that job, and we do believe that we have the best candidate here. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. The chief has been confirmed. Thank you once again. Ken Wilson, I've worked in public safety in the city of Jackson. Worked on a lot of different HOAs to help solve a lot of problems internal of our community. I was part of the hosting 7 of the listening sessions as the mayor directed us to do, and we got feedback from the community. And the community gave us exactly what Dr. Brackney is. She's a leader. She was born to do this. The search committee was a challenge, but listening to her over and over again, I know that we made the best recommendation to the mayor. So welcome once again, and thank you.
Thank you so much.
Finally, a member of the mayor's transition team and a great spiritual and community and business leader in our community, the Honorable Bishop Ronnie Crudup.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and to Dr. Brackney, congratulations.
Thank you.
We're excited on behalf of the faith community that has got an opportunity to talk with her and express their various opinions around this. We're elated. We think that we've gotten a top flight candidate for this, the best person that's available, and we believe it's going to be a new day in Jackson, Mississippi. So we're excited.
All right, we have our new chief of police for JPD. We have our great Hinds County Sheriff, and we also have the captain of Capitol Police, Mr. Bo Lucky. We'll ask him to come and say a few words.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor, for allowing me to be here today and for allowing me to be a part of this. Chief Brackney and I met this morning and talked about our plans moving forward and the partnerships that already exist between Jackson Police Department, Hinds County Sheriff's Department, Capitol Police, other state agencies, and federal partners. And I look forward to continuing those talks in the near future and working more to strengthen those partnerships in every way possible. From the beginning, I've said Capitol Police will always be a strong partner with all of our local law enforcement agencies. We will always do whatever we can to assist. That is our role in this law enforcement capacity here in the city of Jackson. And I'm happy to congratulate Chief Brackney on her confirmation today, and I look forward to what's to come.
Thank you, sir.
And now, without any further ado, Chief Dr. Rachelle Brackney, the new Chief of Police for Jackson Police Department. Let's give her a warm welcome.
Well, when we started, it was good afternoon, and now it's good evening. Jackson, I am so excited. I have understood my entire life that public safety does not happen in a vacuum. It is not one single police department, not one single public safety agency that can do this work. The most important part of the equation is the community, the people that live in the community, the people that are served by this community. And Jackson, I am asking you to partner with us, not because it's the expected thing to say, not because there's some title, but because as Jackson rises, so do you. As we continue to develop economically, spiritually, emotionally in this community, you too are invested. And where my success lies, so does yours. So does that of your children. And then if we are here to keep this community safe, I cannot do it by myself. Neither can any one of these persons standing behind us. You are integral to this agency and to our success. I look forward to seeing you, to working with you, and to spending some time with you in your living rooms, on your front porches, over some sweet tea, over some fried catfish. I plan on spending some time with you, meeting you exactly where you are so that we can meet your needs, not only in moments of crises, but in moments of calm. I look forward to spending some time. Thank you so much. I am excited about the confidence that this community has shown, the search committee has shown, that the mayor has shown, that our partners have shown in the entire process, and I look forward to this opportunity. Thank you so much.
We'll open the floor for a few questions.
Congratulations, Dr. Brackney.
Thank you.
I just want to ask, you were promised $250,000 as your salary, right? If they aren't able to give you that, would you still be willing to stay and do the job?
So if anyone who does this job and thinks we're in it for the money, that is not what we do this work for. The salary cannot quantify the type of work that needs to be done here. Salary is just a component of it. There are other benefits you get that don't translate to a paycheck or don't translate on paper. The ability to impact lives does not translate at 135, 150, 200,000. You know how it translates? The everyday work that we do and the impact we make on lives. I have been confirmed as your chief of police, and you can guarantee that I will show up here as your chief of police.
And let me do a follow-up to that. I'm new here too, y'all. And procedurally, we should have put the salary amount in the order that was presented. Just a small blip on the screen, a bump in the road. We'll get over it, and we will get her to $150,000, all things being equal. Charlie, thank you for that.
Well, on the salary meeting, Mayor Horn, is there any worry about how that affects the budget, given that the last couple of years budgets have been essentially kind of a guess?
Yes, there's always concern about money in Jackson, but I'm confident that we will find the money to get Dr. Brackney up to that salary.
Pastor Kyle, if you can come to the mic, please.
Further questions?
Please stand. And also, we'll ask Mr. Foot to lead us.
All right, thank you all very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Dr. Brackney, congrats. Thank you so much.
I don't know if they're going to show up or not.
Thank you.